episode of the Raad Life. In our continuing series of interviewing candidates for elected office that are running in 2020, I have a friend of mine, a gentleman who has been on the show before. In fact, had his own show that is now in hiatus while he's running for office, called the Daily Duncan, that my production company, Golden Seal Productions, actually was producing earlier this year. Chris has run for office before and is now running again for city council, or running for city council in San Clemente for 2020. For those who don't know, San Clemente has a couple of seats, a couple of openings that are happening. There's 2 seats that are regular full-term seats, and then there's 1 seat that is now vacant and is called a special election seat fill. That is to continue to finish out the term of former council member Dan Bain. A shout out to Dan. He has moved out of state with his family for a job opportunity, but his seat is now vacant, and so there's a 2-term seat that's available, and there's a 4-year seats that are available. So I'm going to bring in Chris and talk about this particular run for office and how it's different in 2020 from the last time he ran. So let me see if we can get Chris to join us here in the studio. Hey, Chris.
What is up, Rod?
I don't know, man. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm envious of your interior designer. I think your studio looks better than mine.
This is all my wife's doing. Yeah, I could not do it
man.
myself.
It's a great lady you got there. I was just saying that you've been on the show before. You ran for office before. We produced a show for you earlier part of the year that you were doing, and I'm not letting you off the hook. You're going to be doing that whether you're getting into city council or not going forward. I'm just giving you a break right now because it was a great show, well received. But for those who don't know you, take a minute and give people a background, both professionally and in terms of being a candidate in the past. And I really want to kind of get past that. I want to talk about comparison. The last time, this time, a couple of different things going on other than the national sentiment that we've got that has been kind of building in this sort of unfortunate divisiveness for a number of years, number of election cycles. But I also want to talk about how does it been running in a pandemic, given the fact that you have a reference point of running when it wasn't a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And how people both on the voter side, issue side, and just as the logistics of running a campaign is during a period like this. Because I think whatever we're doing today will still probably be, some of it will still be with us next election cycle, even though if we're not in pandemic. So the mic is yours, my friend. Tell people who you are.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rod. Thanks for having me. For sure. Glad to be here. Any chance to talk to the folks out there in San Clemente, I'll take. I mean, here's the first thing about me. I'm a husband to Haley, local businesswoman, father to 3 kids, 9, 7, and 4, Brooklyn, Olivia, and my mini-me, Rico, the 4-year-old. And we live in Talega. This is where we're raising our kids. I'm active in our local elementary school, Vista Del Mar Elementary, where I'm on the school site council, and I run the Watchdogs program over there so dads can get on campus. And that comes a little bit from my background, which was in law enforcement and national security. I was living in Washington, D.C. for 9/11, witnessed the attack on the Pentagon, saw the destruction, and a light bulb went off for me. And I knew right then what I wanted to devote my legal career to, as I was just starting out, getting my graduate law degree at Georgetown. So I jumped into the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection. So that's all the uniformed officers at the border. And I said, send me anywhere, but I was hoping for Miami or New York or San Francisco. It was not any of those 3. It was El Paso, Texas. Blessing in disguise there, because that's where the action was. So I got to work with law enforcement officers every day, stopping smugglers, protecting our border, and found that career to be extraordinarily gratifying. Got moved around to a lot of different duty stations all over the country, got to see how different places were run. And then ultimately, midpoint of my career, 15, 16 years in, decided to go a different direction. I wanted to be more involved in my local community. I saw from being in the government that elected officials had more ability to influence the direction of policy. Some of the immigration policies did not sit well with me, perhaps particularly child separation as a father of young children myself.
Hmm.
And thanks to the supportive wife I have, Haley, she said, do it, take the plunge, leave that comfortable career, do something more meaningful. What do you want your gravestone to say, right? Do you want to say you really have positively affected a lot of people in your community, or you were just a lawyer in the government? So it was a difficult decision because it was very secure, and I was worried about how I was going to take care of my family. But once I kind of flipped that switch, it all fell into place for me. I mean, I love running for office, so I like to say the first time we could move somewhere that the government wasn't, posting me somewhere in different duty posts, we chose San Clemente. So we've been here, settled in, own a home, so this is where we're going to raise our family.
Hmm.
And I wanted right away though to be involved. And again, this was the beginning of election season, so I ran for the state assembly, really right when we got here, late to the game, but ran, I think, a pretty spirited campaign, as Mike Levin would say, uh, and placed third out of fifth in the assembly race. That did not make it through the primary though, because only the top two go on, but learned a tremendous amount. We'll talk a little bit about how that campaign went. And it's obviously learning experience. You just get thrown out there.
What year was that, Chris, for those who are not clear?
That was the end of 2019. So last half of 2019 up to March of 2020. Seems like a lifetime ago, March, right? I mean, it seems like it was a decade ago, but up until March, when the primary was, that was all that election season. And then, you consider it a loss, right? Because you don't get through to the general. Licked the wounds a little bit there, did some soul searching. It's not easy to throw your whole life into a campaign and not be successful. But a lot of folks in the community, wide array of supporters, came to me and said, we'd really, really like you to think about the city council. And right about that time, Dan Bain, the mayor, left, opened a third spot up. And I thought, well, that's a sign, and decided to jump into the city council race. So around June of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, really. And as we were doing,
I'm going to stop you for
yeah,
a minute, only because I mentioned it a little bit in the intro, but I want you to take a minute and explain to people what is the situation in San Clemente right now relevant to the 2020 election for city council.
okay,
I mentioned that there's 2 seats that are open that are one type, and 1 seat that's open that's another type. So we
sure,
can take a minute and just tell people, because I think for people, especially in San Clemente, that may not be clear, you're looking at this and you're going, oh my gosh, there's like, I lost count of how many candidates are running for city council, but they're not all running for the same seat.
right,
And I think I haven't seen a lot of clarification of that enough not to
yeah,
worry about the voter being confused when
yeah,
they're actually filling out their ballot, because it's like, it almost seems like there's 3 seats on city council that are open, and but they're not of equal weight, if you
sure.
will.
Yeah, so there's actually 2 separate places where you'll make a ballot choice for city council. The first is there's 2 open seats for full 4-year terms, and those were always going to be up. There's 5 city council members on the council. Every 2 years, either 2 seats come up or 3 seats come up for the full 4-year term. So I'm in that full 4-year term race with 2 open seats, and so you can select up to 2 people on that part of the ballot.
And how many candidates are running for those 2 open seats?
Total of 10, including myself.
Okay.
And you have, and there's an incumbent and a good crew of candidates. Then we mentioned Dan Bain. So Dan Bain leaving created an open spot on the council. And the way that the ordinances work around this for San Clemente is they wait until the next election, and then there's a special election to fulfill the remainder of that term. So he was about halfway through. So that third seat, which is a separate choice on the ballot, is for the last 2 years of Dan Bain's term. And there's 8 candidates over there. So yeah, total of 18, but there's 10 of us running in the traditional 2 seats open race, and another 8 for that open special election seat.
Right. And there's good, I think the terminology sometimes is just very minor, and that I noticed is the seat that you're running for, the 2 seats that are available that are basically part of the staggering that city councils are traditionally done, where, like, to your point, 2 seats are up, 3 seats are up, so that there's a continuity that happens on city council. those two seats, the way that I saw it referred to on the San Clemente Times page is there as referred to as general election.
Yes.
And then the one that was for Dan Baines, filling out Dan Baines, the rest of the term that Dan Baines' seat was being referred to as special election. So the reason I mentioned that is because people are looking at 18 candidates and they're thinking, I'm voting for 3 out of the 18 and they're all for the same seat. So I'm just bringing that up to people's attention just so that people are informed voters. You know me, I'm all about informing voters. So, all right. So how has it been for you? And I don't want to get into sort of the heated, controversial stuff per se. Let's start with you ran for assembly. It's a different kind of race. It's definitely more of a partisan versus nonpartisan, which is what city council is. And then, although in all honesty, I think everything these days is one level or other partisan, whether you like it or not. But how has it been running now, where you're not coming in at the 11th hour and trying to basically do a wider assembly? This is very focused, but at the same time, you don't have the traditional means of like debates and town hall meetings and gatherings and things like that. How has it been for you?
Yeah, it's been a pretty easy transition, to be honest with you. I mean, I have to say, maybe it was from doing the Daily Duncan show that we'd been on, but also, frankly, I'll just fill you in here. I don't think there's any secret, but like I've been able to be home because of COVID, doing my regular legal job. I work at a law firm doing customs work. That's allowed me to run the campaign and be engaged, a lot more than I could if I had to commute all the time going up to LA.
Right.
So I'm a very much of a grateful person for what I've been able to do. Obviously, it's incredibly sad and tragic, the COVID crisis. But for me, it's enabled me to do things that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So yeah, I was used to the virtual environment. I'll say this: you can jump on Zoom after Zoom after Zoom, and now be 5 places almost at once. Whereas before, when you had in-person meetings, you'd have to be running all around town. So I think it's enabled people to have a wider, more extended kind of universe of people that you can get in contact with.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I honestly believe that, it's a very tragic situation that we're dealing with as far as pandemic, and basically nobody has been spared, whether it's local or global. Nobody has been spared in one degree or the other. But I also do believe that, and I mentioned it on a show a minute ago or earlier today when I was interviewing somebody else, is that it actually allows us to have space between things. Like I find myself actually being able to reflect a lot easier, to be able to find time to breathe and process a lot easier than before, because and by choice. It wasn't like somebody held a gun to our head, other than maybe it was peer pressure or societal pressure, that we were supposed to be going from one fast moving object to another fast moving meeting to another fast moving goal to another, multiple things in our schedule. And now we're kind of forced to slow down, but I think it brings into question the fact that maybe we're having a little bit more quality time because of it. And I would think that in the course of a campaign, that gives you an opportunity both for you and for the voters to maybe connect in a different way than if you had 4 debates that were going on in the course of one day or a weekend, and you basically, by the time the third one came around, you basically couldn't care less of being there, and neither could they. It's a different quality connection. So have you noticed any of that? Can you share some examples of that?
Well, I think it's given us time to be more present and to be more appreciative of our family and our friends and what we have. And I 100% agree with you. For me, for sure, you might have heard the vacuum going before. I'm at home now, right? You got kids running through here. You got we're cleaning all the time. But I love it because, it's more of a fulfilling life of real substance and context, that you can really think, oh my gosh, I get to be here and see my kids playing over there, right? And if I want, I can go sit out on the lounge chair in my backyard and just kind of think and take it all in, right? Listen to a podcast. I could never do that before. So I
Hey, my
do think
84-year-old father made an appearance before we got on the air. I mean,
that's it. He was wheeling right through. Exactly.
he made a cameo with his walker. I mean, it
That's
doesn't get
it.
more
Yeah.
real than that.
That's what you get. And it's real life. And you get to see, I love how you get to see into people's houses, right? And you see what they have in the background, and people are comfortable and they're at home. And so there is I think a real benefit there for sure. I think when everybody has taken better stock of the things that they are very much grateful for in their life, that everybody's going to come to a situation with a better perspective.
You know what's funny, Chris, is I didn't think about this, but it might be interesting to look back and see whether during this election cycle. I mean, I noticed it even today when I was watching some of the confirmation hearings at the Senate. Right, the senators were in their homes. Right,
Yeah.
they were actually in their homes weighing in. Right,
Yeah.
and it almost seems like we have great, and I'm grateful for this and thankful that we have shed a little bit of the pretense. Like it's a lot harder when I don't have basically a glossy,
Yeah.
high paid for delivery system behind me, or a stage with lights and flags and all this stuff, when I'm actually literally sitting in my home and I'm angling my camera so that you don't see the mess on my table, and you got a little more of my ceiling.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of authenticity and
Sure.
truth that is harder to hide.
Right.
And I think maybe that is a byproduct of this that we will appreciate in the future. Like, we actually connected on a little bit more of authentic level, a more honest level with one another during this.
And yeah, I think in candidates like myself are encouraged to sort of embrace that, right? And to show your frustrations and your, foibles and whatever else is going on in your life. And that gives a greater insight into who you are, right? Because I'm running on that. I'm running on myself, right? My own character, my own integrity, and all of that is part of it. So yeah, I didn't like stop videos when I had kids running through and my little Rico's jumping on me. No, that's part of who I am. And so I think it does give candidates hopefully the chance, and they embrace that to show really who they are and not just the vision.
Some do, Chris, but it's that old adage, when you hit a strong light in the dark shadows of something. Some people don't like that. Some people, it's harder to put on airs and pretense when you're actually in real time recording something like this, right? There's an authenticity, there's a truth and a realism that you're right. If I'm going to vote for somebody, I would want to know that this is who they really are, and not the 8x10 glossy. And so maybe 2020 will end up being a turning point for how we basically have gone back to more authentic evaluation of who we want to lead us. Mm-hmm. And we may disagree with them, but their truth and their reality and their comfort in their own skin is much easier to see.
Yeah. There's a word for that: vulnerability, right? And I think vulnerability is strength. And that's what I embrace, right? I will embrace my own faults, right? Okay, here, I'm not the best at whatever, and I got no problem with showing people that. And I'd be the first one to say, hey, so-and-so's got, a little bit better idea over here. That's not, I'm not afraid to say that. And I think that's what we should have leaders able to do. And showing that vulnerability, again, to me is strength, right? Because if you can make fun of yourself, if you can laugh at yourself, that really tells you something about somebody.
Well, it's a very good word to bring up, because vulnerability, I agree with you 100%, is strength. I also know that vulnerability is a litmus test, because if you see vulnerability as being a weakness, and all your energy goes towards basically thwarting that connection in your own being, to be vulnerable, to admit your mistake, to say, I don't know, but I'll look into it and get back to you, to not basically come across like you're the answer to all things. Okay. That to me is an appeal. It appeals to me. That's real, right? The
relatable,
which is basically, I'm a candidate and vulnerability scares the living daylights out of me. That gives me pause. That worries me, because that's not real. That's not that, nobody has all the answers, and you can pretend all you want. I'm going to believe you because I want to believe that you do. But the reality is, I know better. You don't have all the answers. We are all works in progress. Okay. So awesome. Thank you. I want to focus on San Clemente, because I want to be fair to other candidates that I'm interviewing too, where we're talking about particular issues, right? And there are a few issues that I'm going to throw out there. There may be others that you want to talk about, but there's three that keep coming up relevant to San Clemente. I think two of them, I would say, are probably very much not even just San Clemente, but regionally, if not statewide or global, right?
Yeah.
Or national. So we've got the homeless.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you an option. You take them in whatever order you want. You got the homeless. You got the toll road, which I referred to yesterday during an interview as being the zombie that never dies. It's especially coming up on Halloween. It's the zombie.
Well, I've got the wooden stake for it. I'll talk about that in a second.
So the toll road, the homeless issue, and then we've got the situation, in my opinion, where we are an aging population.
Yeah.
We are a built-out community. We are that has a reality impact on economic engines. This is not new for you. You and I have talked about this before. The economic engines that we have considered in the past as being a sustainable way to basically provide for us as a community are not as effective as they used to be, and we need to be a little bit more out of the box thinking, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the hospital that is sort of very local, right?
Yeah.
So there may be others you want to talk about, but if you'll take a minute, just maybe address these, and then let's talk about some other stuff that you think is important.
All right. Well, let me take the TCA or the toll road one first, just because I think that'll be the easiest to address.
Okay.
I'm the only candidate that I know that's not just saying I'm against the toll road. I think that's easy to say. Well, how are you going to be against the toll road? Well, my plan is to promote and support the calls for the investigations into the TCA that Congressman Mike Levin has asked for the Department of Transportation, Caltrans, to use their internal investigations to build off of the grand jury report, which came out, which is very critical of the TCA, Transportation Corridor Agencies, by the way, the people who run the toll road. And so I think we should have a full investigation, full audit. I used to do those at Homeland Security. I'm very familiar with them, and I know what you're going to find. You're going to find rampant corruption. You're going to find mismanagement that's led them to be twice as in debt as they were when they started. And look, they've pledged now to not continue the 241 highway any farther than it is at Los Osos. So if that's the case, why do we even need the TCA? All they're doing is collecting tolls. They've got people making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're spending all kind of money on consultants. That's money that's being mismanaged, right? People may not realize.
They're not only collecting tolls.
Development
they're also collecting development fees.
And that costs us. That makes everything.
In areas, by the way, in areas that they will never have a toll road.
Exactly. Like us now, right? At least that's what they say. And they're also trying to toll roads on the I-5, right? And so this is an organization that has outlived its purpose. It doesn't need to exist anymore. The Orange County Transportation Authority could take over those duties. Already the construction and road repairs done by Caltrans, they're not even doing that. So my plan is to support and get those investigations going, use those findings to eliminate the TCA. Then we never have to worry about it.
By the way, Chris, even if you eliminate their function as basically building roads, am I wrong in thinking that the fast track transponder system is actually proprietary software that is owned by the same agency that collects a processing fee on every transaction that happens, including ones in the Bay Area? I mean,
yeah.
Right?
The transponder works in the Bay Area. So yes, it's the same company running that.
Because it was a request for information. When I look back into it, it was a request for information by the state that this agency provided the software in order to be able to bill for trips, basically. So right. Even though you may not be building any more roads, you're still making money on transportation fees on roads that are basically not even TCA roads. Like if the 91 fast track, or if you're taking HOV lanes and then turning them into managed lanes as part of OCTA, right? Yeah. I mean, they've got all kinds of revenue coming in, which makes it all the more frustrating that they continue to go in further and further in debt and keep refinancing the debt, to extend out the life of the repayment. These roads are supposed to become free in the very near future. Yeah. But really what you see with the TCA is a money-making operation. And it's a cash cow. I mean, I've called it that. People are not going to be surprised when listening to me say it again. It's a cash cow. The way it's structured, there's no reason that's rational if you're on the receiving side of that cash cow to kill it, because
Exactly.
it's just and the thing that's the most ironic is then claiming hardship about not being able to pay your refinanced loans,
Yeah.
basically, while you're paying tens of millions of dollars of contracts for consultants. I mean,
Sure.
don't get me wrong. If you're on the receiving end of it, I totally get why you're not want to kill it. But
Yeah.
if you're just looking at it objectively from up here, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Okay, so that's the stake. We're gonna
That's
put
it.
the stake in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're right. It needs that audit. You know, there's been movement on that. That needs to continue.
You have to
Um,
have the evidence to support those decisions. Yeah.
well, it's taxpayer money. I mean, you know, it's people, and don't even get me started. I mean, the economic disparity, the you know, all that aspect of it. It's $21 one way on a 91 freeway to go to
Sure.
Big Bear. I mean, give me a break.
Right.
So what? Okay, so that's done. So which other one do you want to pick up next?
Let's do homelessness. I mean, it's at the top of mind, I think, for a lot of residents of San Clemente. And what you see with homelessness is we've never had a plan. Like, it's been nibbling around the edges. It's hoping that charities or churches take care of it. Okay, let's force our deputies to police our way out of the problem. That's not help. That's not beneficial to them. That they're not well suited to solve our homeless problem. That's not their job.
Yeah.
And the problem has just continued to then get worse because there's no plan. So you have to have a plan. So the first thing is, okay, you know, what's the guiding principle of our plan? Well, the guiding principle, and I think the good people of San Clemente would agree, generally speaking, let's get these folks off the beaches, off the streets, and on the road towards eventually becoming self-sufficient, solving whatever problems they are, and becoming housed. And people can criticize me for that, but I think it's a righteous goal to want those vulnerable people in our community to ultimately have housing and be able to take care of themselves. They're not going to be able to do that from out on the street. They're going to need some housing. Now, it's not San Clemente's responsibility, though, to solve that whole problem. It's a region.
Right.
Right.
But you know what, Chris? Here's the thing.
Yeah.
And then this goes back to also another topic which I do want to touch on, which is affordable housing, right? Where the solution to this problem is multi-layered. The problem itself is multifaceted. We all agree on this, but kicking that can down the road and hoping that somebody else picks up the problem and solves it for us has not worked, will never work. You got any concern, any questions about whether that kind of approach would ever be effective? Ask your mother if you ever got away with that kind of approach to solving anything. You know exactly what my mother and your mother and anybody else's mother would tell them, right? No, you roll up your sleeves, take care of the problem. So the thing about this is, I want to add another layer of complexity for people to think about. The largest, fastest growing portion of homeless in Orange County is senior women.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look around San Clemente. You'll see it.
It's women, and there are some that have been around for a bit that fit that profile. Senior women, people that are seniors that are one medical cost away from the razor's edge. Right? You got single moms. So this mindset that we have that all people that are homeless are young, no good, you know, drug addicts that basically don't want to be off the streets without whatever amount of help you give them is not 100% profile correct. I mean, yes, there are some that fit that profile, but brush stroking the whole thing to be that is inaccurate. Educate yourselves and know. So what do we do? What do we do with this regional solution? How do we do it?
So the foundation piece is you have to have a facility of some sort. This should not be a facility located right down by the beach where people want to hang out. And it shouldn't be a long-term facility. It's a transitional facility where you have mental health clinicians, substance abuse counselors, occupational specialists, senior specialists who understand the financial aspects of fixed income, all at one place. These are available to these homeless individuals. Now, having that transitional facility, which again will be regional, doesn't even have to be in San Clemente, as that focal point where we can bring these individuals off the streets to get that triage, to get that diagnosis in a controlled environment, that would allow us to set a pathway for them to, you know, take advantage of those programs and benefit themselves. That's not available out on the street, right? So you have to have some kind of a facility. This is what they've done in Huntington Beach, Fullerton, and other places. And whether it's county run, which I think the county should have programs to run that, or you have the contractors come in, you need to have that facility. And here's the other benefit of it, because everybody wants to not in my backyard. And of course I get that. It doesn't have to be located by a residential area, and it shouldn't be. But once you have that in place, now you can empower the deputies to enforce our anti-camping laws, right? So that's the thing. We've got the Boise versus Martin decision, which San Clemente was a litigant in. And what basically the Ninth Circuit said, and the Supreme Court didn't review it, so now it's the law of the land, is that you've got to have that bed, that shelter space for a person, or you can't enforce the laws for people who are non-compliant and just want to sleep wherever they want on the beach and wherever. So it would empower our authorities to have that authority, which they do not have now. So the deputies would be able to act in those situations with non-compliant individuals or individuals who just aren't willing to go to this shelter and get any help. So you have that sort of double-edged benefit for people who are looking to have the help or willing to engage in it. There you go. And for people who aren't, the few, I think, who wouldn't be, we now have an enforcement tool we can use. And most importantly, and having worked with law enforcement officers my whole life, that clarity, that ability to give our deputies, okay, here's the clear law. It would be so beneficial to them to not have to make these decisions out on the street without knowing, oh, do I have authority to arrest this person or cite this person or not? It would give them that. And, I'll just sort of finish up with, there's a program that I've talked with Sheriff Barnes about, and he supports, called the PERT program, Psychiatric Emergency Response Team. So a lot of these folks do have mental illness. And what we don't want to see is armed sheriff's deputies being the people who are engaging an agitated person with mental illness out on the street. The PERT team has mental health clinicians accompany the deputies. They engage as the first point of contact with people who may have a mental illness, and they're trained and they understand how to communicate with folks with those issues. And that's who should be engaging. And I think the deputies would support that, just like, they would think Sheriff Barnes would too. So, that's where we need to be headed. Have those programs available, lift off the shoulders the responsibility to resolve every single problem in our area off the deputies' shoulders, and be guided by that sense, though, that we are giving people. We want to help people. Our general goal is to do what we can to better our society. And that means helping those most vulnerable members of our community, whether they be seniors or folks with mental illness or substance abuse or whatever. And so it fulfills all of those. And but most importantly, it's a plan. It's obviously a very complex issue, but it's a step forward towards helping people and resolving this issue instead of just waiting for it to resolve itself.
Well, and perfect is the enemy of the good, right? I mean, you need to basically get started on something and then tweak and correct it as you proceed. But you can't sit there thinking that I'm going to come up with the perfect solution and then basically I'll put it into effect. This is not the way these things work. Even your perfect solution in 2020, when you roll it out in 2021, may become obsolete, and now basically you have to do it again. I will tell you something. It really reminds me, this is another issue which requires leadership versus an abdication of leadership. Yeah. It requires somebody to stand up and basically say, I am here to talk about this from a different perspective. Let's look at this from a different light, in a different filter. These are human beings. These are our neighbors. Now with the pandemic, with the loss of jobs, with the high unemployment rate, you're talking about people that 2 years ago, 1 year ago, maybe have been completely opposed to even doing anything because it wasn't them. Now you're maybe closer degrees of separation from somebody that that after this year that we've had is basically on a razor's edge from becoming that temporarily homeless person. The other thing I think that we need to be aware of is the language that we use, okay? I will tell you, you mentioned this program that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that it's called PERP.
Well, PERT.
Oh, PERT. Okay. It sounded like PERP. I'm like, why is it called PERP from the sheriff's department? Like,
yeah, I agree. That would be bad.
We're being sensitive, but it's called PERP. I'm like, so I apologize for getting it wrong, but my point still stands. We need to be careful how and it's not political correctness. We have to be empathetic in how we basically discuss the narrative of a situation, whether it's this or that, doesn't matter. Because if we basically start talking about it in absolutes, it really undermines our ability to work towards a compromise solution. From the beginning, it's almost worthless, right?
Yeah.
So it requires leadership, clear leadership that knows the difference of that kind of stuff.
And here's the thing I'll say about myself. I'm willing to step up and do the right thing and say the right things that a leader would say and do and take the hits. I'll take the personal hits, and that's going to come when you step up, right? That's why people don't do it,
Right.
because they want to be in the good graces of the vocal minority there that's active. And so they never step forward to do it. No, I'll do that. And I'll take the personal costs that come with that to do that right thing, to move the ball down the field.
But you don't step up, you're gonna get take the hits from your wife. So
Yeah, that's true. That's worse than anything anybody else can dish out.
that anybody else can do for you.
But that's my background, right? And that's what I did at Homeland Security too. I mean, I worked with a lot of different organizations and stakeholders. A lot of them didn't like what we were doing, right? We had to deal with the ACLU and all kinds of interest groups all the time. And I brought those people together to help develop a policy that was satisfactory to everybody. We need that kind of consensus building. But the people that are leading that consensus building have to be people who are willing to step outside of the comfort zone and say what needs to be said and act with that good heart. And I haven't always seen that happening. And so I know that that's the type of person I am, and that's what I would bring to the city council. But I am willing to, I'm not going to stand so much on principle that I won't meet somebody in the middle. I'm willing to do that, right? And I'll keep the discussions with anybody on the council going and try to find those points of agreement. I think we have a lot more in common than we're led to believe, right? And let's focus in on those and not get so caught up in those issues where we disagree. And by the way, just a point on civility, it hasn't been the case that the council's been civil, right? We need people with good integrity, civility, decency, who are willing to talk to each other, even when you disagree, and keep it productive and good natured. And we haven't seen that. And that's been disappointing. And I'm very hopeful that we'll see a change when we get the new folks on campus.
Part of the issue, Chris, is that I think it's unfortunate, but people forget that your primary responsibility when you get elected to office is to serve and do the job that you were elected to, not to start basically running for re-election.
Yeah.
That is getting reelected is the reward you get for doing your job. That's how it's supposed to be. Not where you basically get in the seat and now all you need to do is basically hold on to that seat. Okay. Right. I mean, if you do your job, you shouldn't have a problem holding on to the seat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you do the job, then you shouldn't be putting all this friggin' energy. And if you're putting all that energy into basically trying to hold on to the seat, then how much energy do you have left to actually do the job that you were elected for?
Right. Don't be carrying the water for the people who got you there, right? Like, get the job done, find consensus, build agreement, and start getting things done for the city. That's what I'll do on the council. And I think people are looking for that.
So with that being said, and it's a little bit going to be a little bit from left field because I didn't tell you about this before. I'm just curious.
The gotcha question.
You know me, right? So for just since we're on this, how do you feel about term limits?
Yeah, I support them. Yeah, I mean, and that's on the ballot. I think it's a good idea. I think we should have a requirement to get some new blood and new thinking in there periodically. A lot of times, people just kind of, again, continue to just get reelected based with the same sort of base of voters. Yeah. They have the same ideas. It doesn't reward new thinking, right? It sort of rewards old thinking. Let's stick with whatever you did before because that's been successful and that'll keep me in office. That's not the way any leader should be thinking. And by the way, if people don't think I'm doing a good job, yeah, I mean, I want them to let me know, right? I'm not afraid of that. That's constructive feedback. So I think that that ballot initiative that's on the ballot about term limits is a good thing. You can take a break and then run again. I think it's good for the candidates too, right? To sort of know, okay, here's where I'm going to be. I got 8 years. I got to get the job done. That's going to be my time. I'm not going to just be hanging around here forever. So I think that's a good idea in all kinds of different contexts.
Well, and if you feel good, if you feel passionate about a particular cause, then it says here's your period that you have in order to achieve it. So you don't have an open-ended kick the can down the road, because that doesn't do anything. And it also makes it more real. Like, you got to achieve the stuff. And because again, what may be important today, 10 years from now, it's very unfortunate. I shared this on another interview. I had the privilege, and I want to thank and mention her. She's a great asset to the city. She's a friend, Joanne Beatty, that basically in her capacity years ago when I was on the Historical Society board, I went over there and she shared with me, she has a binder. She might not want it to be known, but I'm going to put it out anyway. The
Yeah.
leather bound binder, I'm kidding, that was basically the city council minutes from 1926, right? Like these are
Oh,
the
wow.
archives of the minutes, you know, and names, famous names that you know that are in there, like basically, right? And it's fascinating how some of these same issues that we're dealing with today, parking and this and that and whatever, right? Development, there's the same issues with just different names, right? So it begs the question, why are we, I mean, yes, there's certain things like the beach and maintenance of this and that. Of course, they're going to be regular. But why are some of these issues still around? Why, like, are we that incompetent that we can't resolve some of these problems?
Yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah. Well, on that note, and because I don't want to forget this, outdoor dining, and I'll talk because I want to talk about a little bit about that.
Good,
Big,
good one. Let's talk about that one.
all right, big success would never have happened if
If it wasn't for COVID.
if not COVID-19 hadn't happened. It had to shake us loose out of this sort of doomsday thinking. We can't lose those parking spots. We can't block the sidewalk, and obviously we could. One of the things I saw in one of the articles, I think the San Clemente Times, Fred Suegels writes the sort of historical pieces. There was a picture of the Pier Bowl. It was all outdoor dining. I mean, they didn't have AC and stuff, so you wanted to be out there. You had to get the ocean breeze blowing through. So in some ways, we're like going back to the future again, to to those things that worked in the past that we've sort of gotten away from, I guess, in our modern thinking. But like, this isn't that crazy of an idea. We did this before. It worked, and let's think about things from that perspective and not just get so ingrained into, well, we want San Clemente to look a certain way, so we can't think any way out of that. No development, nothing new. No, we can have smart development where we keep the Spanish Village look, but we take advantage of our incredible climate. And, I want to see that us take advantage of this economic uncertainty as an opportunity. I think we can expand beyond just sort of the outdoor dining but like as a microcosm of it. Let's start thinking bigger about all kinds of things. Let's get new businesses in here, right? New businesses. People now are going to be able to work from home more. Let's have them work from home here in San Clemente, right? Like, let's have business hubs here where people are maybe working from home and then they go to one satellite office one day a week or something like that. Why not here? Let's bring those businesses in.
We are conveniently located halfway between Los Angeles and San Diego.
Exactly. And let's have an economic developer, development coordinator that's part of the city staff that's centered just on that. So while these other cities are looking at slowdowns because they rely on, say, hotel revenue or something like that, we don't have that problem. We've got stability because our revenue comes chiefly from property taxes. That gives us a stable platform. But let's take advantage of this opportunity. When others are slowing down or being concerned, let's open up. Let's bring new businesses in who are thinking different. And so part of that is, and I've talked about this with Larry Culbertson, the president of the Historical Society, is, okay, that doesn't mean we start tearing down historic buildings. Let's rehab them. Let's remodel them. Let's redo the insides, keep the exterior look, and let's encourage developers to do that, right? So what's the trade-off? How are we going to get people to do this? Well, we speed up that permitting process. We knock down those barriers that architects and engineers have found so frustrating about San Clemente before, and we get a state-of-the-art planning, building, and engineering divisions, and they're automated, they're responsive. People know they're going to get an answer right away. There's predictability, which all hasn't been the case with building in San Clemente before. And so that one helps our existing businesses who need to expand or change their footprint to deal with COVID. But two, it makes it more attractive for outside businesses to come in and look at San Clemente as a place they want to have their hub. And that means tech and other new kinds of industries. And this is the place to do it, right? Like, what better quality of life can you have? It's a family-friendly city. It's still, not so expensive like Newport Beach and Laguna Beach and some of these areas around us, but it has better beaches, I think, than they do. And so we have these advantages. Let's take advantage of them and not get so caught up on keeping San Clemente exactly how it was, whatever time frame you want to look at.
Well, San Clemente, and I had an opportunity to sit down with another gentleman that's running for candidate for city council, who happens to be a professional architect and an urban planner, and we talked about the fact that San Clemente was the very first planned community in California. Like, there was other ones in different states, but San Clemente was a planned community. It was a development. It was it was based on a experiential promise, right? That's why we have outdoor spaces. That's why the beach was dedicated and deeded to the city by Ollie Hansen. The,
Yeah.
the municipal golf course, you know, the North Beach is an entertainment zone. You name it. The pier, the fishing, you know, used to be a fishing pier. The hotel was the first building that got built for people to stay in, so they can be looking over from the roof to their lots as they were being built. I mean, it was not an organic, you know, like somebody pitched a tent and then other tents came around like a Western town that grew. It was actually a planned community. And I will tell you, as a person who sat on the board for 15 years at San Clemente Historical Society, we as a community have been very negligent in leveraging our real gold that we have that has a direct link to our quality of life. Okay. We are a destination. As much as we try to shake that away and shut the stores down when we have a fiesta on Del Mar and fight it tooth and nail, we are a destination. People come from New Zealand to friggin' surf San Clemente. Okay. I mean, it's not even a local destination. It's an international destination. We don't have a officer at the city or an effort that is strategically worked from the city side of things that promotes tourism in San Clemente, that promotes business incubation that is lightweight industrial, sensitive to our quality of life. I'm not saying we're going to build a friggin' factory down the street, but there's a lot of things because of technology, because of how we conduct business these days, because of the ability to remotely work, that we can bring an economic engine, multiple economic engines into San Clemente that are not dependent on tear down and build massive real estate developments, because that economic engine is not viable anymore in a built-out community, in a community where a lot of the residents are basically holding onto their homes until later in life, where property values are not increasing based on market value, regardless of what happens maybe now with the situation with the you know the measures on the ballot. Although that measure that speaks to that is not supposed to impact residential, right? So we've got a depreciation in take from property taxes, from retail taxes. Retail is completely changed. We have all this commercial space that is, whether it's historical or otherwise, that is really ripe for adaptive reuse.
Sure.
Right? And the only limitation really is our imagination. I mean, why don't we have an incubation? Why are we not trying to keep the youth of San Clemente in town with a great idea? The locker you know, skateboard. The guy that basically came up with the scorch pen, right? You know, that basically revolutionized how you basically write on wood, right? Those are local guys that came out of this area. And if there was an incubator that would champion them, you know, the Shecklers of the world, all this stuff, and really genuinely embrace them as future leaders, we would both financially gain, and more importantly, we would be basically keeping in our communities those who genuinely have a direct DNA connection to the well-being of the community.
Yeah. So let's build that up as part of the culture of San Clemente, right? Like, let's have that as part of the identity. Why are we sort of hiding that or running away from it or not emphasizing it?
By the way, we historically have done that with something called the surf culture.
Exactly. But just with the surf culture. Yeah, but we should build on that and have it be broader. And this is the exact place for incubation to happen. But I am worried as a father of young kids that my kids aren't going to be able to afford to live here, right? And it's an aging town, and we're going to have brain drain if we can't keep our
They're
young.
never leaving home, Chris. They're going to be with you until they're 40.
They may be. I tell you what, that's the one thing about this being close to your kids, which is wonderful. But like the distance learning, I know for parents, it's like sometimes we want a little more distance from our kids, you know. But you know, that's one of the things that we've had to deal with. But no, I look forward to the day when they start their own careers. But I would love to think that they would be able to come back from college, say, and settle into San Clemente. And I don't know if I see that right now. We need to make sure we are preparing ourselves for that younger generation to come back. And so we need to take steps to rethink our affordable housing situation. And part of that is the same kind of thinking that you're talking about. It's our only imagination. We have the structures there. We don't need to be tearing everything down and building monstrosities. Right. We shouldn't do that. And we certainly shouldn't touch North Beach or the Pier Bowl. Those are historic areas that are the very fabric of San Clemente. But there's all kinds of areas along El Camino where we could be thinking, well, this could be a lofts, the studio units, right, in a redeveloped building that's rehab, but looks.
Los Molinos is a perfect example that's primed for work, live. Especially if there's incentivization for business and basically the city gets in behind that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in town that have come from corporate success that would basically be a resource available for the city to tap into to help with those incubations. You know, why isn't the former theater on Los Mares a multi business incubation that is basically run by the city? I mean, it's just sitting vacant.
Right.
And if you're basically going to think at some point we're going to go back to the same business model of occupying that space, it's not ever going to be a theater again. There's one opening up at the outlets that's more modern, more updated. We've got massive real estate that is not being basically championed. And this is again, it goes back to that leadership. Okay, you need to have leadership that's willing to step up. And even though it may be controversial or, dare I say, difficult, right? Actually step up, roll its sleeve, and say, we're going to do this different, and here's what we could benefit from it, and we're going to learn along the way how to perfect it.
Right. And you provide that direction to the staff. The staff, city staff's looking for that, right? They're looking for that leadership, looking for that direction. We do need to get a city manager in who has a similar vision, right, for that. That's a key first thing, I think, when we get on council. Get that city manager in who's an outside the box thinker, but brings that business experience or that financial experience to the table. And yeah, I mean, I think infrastructure is a big part of my platform too. Speaking of vacant lots or abandoned buildings, what about those vacant lots when you get off the freeway? I mean, that's just terrible. How did we let this happen where the first thing you see when you get into San Clemente is an empty old gas station lot? That doesn't make any sense. That's not welcoming. That's not helping our local businesses. And so,
well, it's the same mindset of why we basically have been sitting on anemic redevelopment of North Beach.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, the solution that is currently being undertaken at the Miramar Theater, I will tell you from personal experience, 15 years ago when I joined the Historical Society, I did a Celebrate the Miramar event at Talega instead of a Save the Miramar. And we had the same economic incentives that could basically make that a viable option. It has taken over 15 years for that thing to come to fruition. We as a community could have been benefiting both on the economic side, the tax-based side, the enjoyment and experiential side, and the draw side for at least half that period, 7 years. We could have been basically benefiting from it. Instead, we've basically been talking about plight and this and that and proposing projects that would never see the light of day, from everything from coastals weighing in to the community embracing it. And there was the only thing that was lacking was the leadership to say, this is what we want,
right,
and this is how we can get it done. Now come partner with us and let's do it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what I like. That's what I like to see. That's what I'll bring to the table, because I'm not scared to say those things. But that's a great example. Now we at least have that, right? Like we can say, okay, here's what we could be. Let's embrace our role and position as a destination. Let's not run away from it. Let's put an arch over El Camino when you're coming in from Capo Beach, so you know you're in North Beach, right? You know you're going into San Clemente, and it's welcoming. That generates business for all our local businesses, not just the ones that are in the tourism industry or or restaurants. All of that.
I agree with you on the fact that there needs to be a gateway entrance. I don't think the arch is a San Clemente thing, but that's just that's where we sit down and talk about it, because if everybody has an arch, you know me, if everybody has an arch, I want something more unique. But the thing about it is true. We need to have a welcome gateway. That happens. I was averse to the fact that why should North Beach be the first place that we basically do a historical district when the downtown is already a historical district in everything but name and recognition. But then I said, okay, fine. That's okay. We've got less property owners in North Beach. We have more opportunity. Let's do that. And I think it will basically, become a snowball, and it will affect an area like the Pier Bowl and downtown. But we have to compromise. We have to find ways to make these things happen versus sit 20 years later and basically, the kid that was, in a stroller when we first started talking about it is now basically is saying goodbye because they can't afford to be in San Clemente, let alone enjoy what we were talking about. Right. I mean, Courtney's Sandcastle was one of those examples. Courtney's Sandcastle had been discussed for so long that when Courtney when it first started, Courtney was like in middle school. And by the time it actually came to fruition, Courtney was ready to go to college.
Yeah.
Okay, there's something wrong with that.
Right. Well, what you see in San Clemente is you really see two different groups, right? You see the sort of the group that doesn't want any change, and then you see a super development group. Well, I envision myself as a bridge between those because I see the benefits of both, right? And so we have to have development. It has to be smart development. The worst thing we could do is do something to make San Clemente look like any other city in Orange County and lose that character. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we just put up a stop sign every time there's a new idea because it doesn't fit exactly perfectly in.
Sensitive and responsible has always been the way to go about development. 5-story building on top of where the movie theater Miramar is was never going to fly. Okay,
Yeah.
three stories of underground parking where the Miramar is in a water table thing was never going to fly. That was a waste of time to even discuss it. An adaptive reuse and enhancement of a performing arts center, which we don't have even for the high school, that always had merits, and it had merits 15 years ago, and it's now basically coming to fruition. We should basically, to your point of expediting the process, part of expediting the process is actually talking about things that actually are sensitive and responsible.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, so let's talk about another one. What about the hospital?
Yeah, I was just talking to a firefighter supporter. By the way, firefighters endorsed the campaign. Really happy about that as I work with first responders and Homeland Security. So that I was really happy to get that. But I was talking with a firefighter this morning, longtime resident, and you know, they see it at the ground level, these emergency situations. And so, and by the way, this guy his mom had worked at the hospital, grew up going to the hospital. So it was part of his sort of family experience.
Yeah.
His life. And he thought it was a tragedy that we don't have a hospital, right? Because it's just so far to get to Saddleback. We're at the bottom end of Orange County. He expressed a lot of concern for emergency situations, earthquake, terrorist attack on Songs, San Onofre Nuclear Generating Station. Yeah. And we have no way out but the 5, right? And so we're in this difficult situation. We don't have a lot of surrounding areas for, that provide that kind of medical treatment. So he really, but he understands the financial aspects of the hospital may just not work for the city. We can't make it happen, right? Eventually, it's really the bidding process, and a hospital group has to come in and be willing to put the money in. Now, we should do everything we can to make it as hospitable, welcoming, get some skin in the game from the city as well. I do think we need to do more there to make it, to entice, with Palomar basically is the only bidder right now, but some hospital group to come in and put the hospital there. But it's more likely that what we're going to really need to get is that hybrid system, right? So like a facility that has some emergency room operations. He envisioned it as a place when there is that inevitable emergency, that's where everybody's going. That's where the helicopter can land. That's where all of the off-duty doctors and firefighters that work in other areas but aren't going to be able to get to them, they're going to volunteer and they're all going to come in. And so we can do that. And that is maybe a more financially viable option than a full-fledged hospital. But I think we need to understand it's not sustainable to have our nearest hospital 45 minutes away by ambulance ride even. That's too long for our older populations or people with medical.
You got an 84-year-old father that basically is, that those 2 extra minutes or whatever are a matter of life and death. Absolutely agree with you 100%. So would you be in support if we can't make the current site of the hospital, okay, whether through rezoning, and I know we're getting sued on that and all that stuff, and I think we had a little win on that side of things. But if that doesn't work out, and you're on city council, would you be in support of actually zoning another area for a potential future site of something like that? Because again, the driving reason is that we as a community of, over 60,000 people really should have one like that. And to be honest, going back to what we were just talking about, where we are leveraging what is great about San Clemente and unique about San Clemente to draw people in. You got an aging population throughout the whole of Orange County. Okay. I mean, the baby, there's like, in general, I think across the country, if not across the world, you've got an aging population. I mean, we're mothballing schools because we don't have enough young kids going into them, right? We got older people coming in. Having something like this, where you have an infrastructure that supports this, where you are not needing to go 45 minutes to get to the hospital, that is going to be a draw for people to come in from inland, want to go by the ocean and pick San Clemente out of other towns to basically, and I'll tell you, like Laguna Beach probably has people that move to Laguna, not only because it's Laguna, but because there's also a hospital in Laguna.
Yeah, I think that is important to people. And from the people that I've been talking to through the campaign, it really is. And so, whether it's rezone different location or, there is zoning already at the outlets for a, whatever you want to call it, a super urgent care facility. And I don't know if that would fulfill the bill, but the outlet location is very central to the city, easy to get to for most people. So that's something to think about. Oh, for
Easy
sure.
access, probably helicopter landing. I mean, yes,
That,
absolutely.
yeah, it's wide open for all of that. So maybe that's a kind of a place that it would work. I think that's how we need to think. Getting so caught up in, okay, we need to have the hospital. It has to be exactly where the hospital was before. That shouldn't be the starting point, I mean, I think we need to think bigger than that, because even if we had a hospital decide to start up tomorrow, it would be a significant amount of time before they got that hospital up and running again, even with the existing, structure. They have to get all kinds of new permits and everything. So it's not like a turnkey operation is going to happen there anyway. So we're looking at something that's going to be a little ways out. Why not change the focus from, okay, who's going to come in and and get the hospital going again at that exact same location, to forget location. Let's not think about that. Let's have a vision for what we want. What's going to fit the bill? What's going to, prevent that lingering concern that people have that there's no hospital? What's going to entice them to want to come to San Clemente because there is a medical facility that's going to be available to them? Let's get that in our mind first. Then we'll figure out where to go, because there are places we could locate it in San Clemente other than that existing hospital location, for sure.
Okay, Chris. So before we wrap up here, what else do you feel is important for people to that needs addressing, maybe in San Clemente, or that you are hoping to bring to City Council? We tend to talk sometimes when we do these about crises and issues and things that need to be addressed and so forth, and we forget sometimes that equally important from a sustainability perspective is inspiration. Like, what is it that we are hoping for that's beyond just basically damage control or just, taking care of issues that we are facing,
Yeah.
What else do you want to basically share here?
Well, just the type of person I am. I mean, I get along with people well. I don't know how else to say it rather than that, right? Like, I'm approachable, I'm relatable. And I think that's what we need more than anything else. We need people who are going in there who really have their heart set on doing something good for this city, have a real investment in the city, but bring that good character, that sense of decency again, and civility, and getting along with people, and wanting to, people say, well, what will you do when, somebody doesn't want to agree with whatever proposal? I'll keep the conversation going. I'm not going to, okay, well, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. You don't agree with me on this. No. And I think these groupings that we've had on council where it's like everybody knows how the votes are going to happen, that shouldn't happen. Everybody should be an individual, look at situations and do the analysis, come to their best sort of position on it, but then always be willing to hear somebody else out, right? I will always reach out my hand to other members on a council, hear them out. And if that means I have to take a step back on a couple of my things so that we can meet in the middle, I'm totally willing to do that. Bottom line, I'm just a good guy. I'm a guy with kids in city. I like to go grill in the backyard. I like to take my kids go boogie boarding at the beach, right? I think we need more of that kind of thing, right? Like, I'm not going to come in here and say I'm going to solve every problem for San Clemente. I know everything, and I'm as a lawyer, I'm going to be the one that's going to make all the key decisions because I have that background. No, I think that's just a skill set that I bring to it. But more than anything else, I'm used to bring a diverse set of people together to get things done. It's what we did at Homeland Security, 16 years, no major terrorist attacks. That didn't just happen on a whim. It happened because every day we got together and we had people of all kinds of different perspectives meet in the middle, develop a mission plan, and execute that. And that's what we can do in the city. And I'm going to be that kind of bridge builder that's going to make that happen. I hope I do inspire people to get more involved and to think that there's a new perspective on council, and that there's somebody who can give voice to some concerns maybe that they haven't seen in the past, because a lot of people seem to be coming kind of from the same perspective that get elected. I'm not going to come with that perspective. I'm going to come with a new, fresh one, bring all those experiences from living in all the different towns that I have, and knowing what works and those to the table. And again, always be willing to hear people out. I envision holding town halls, and I will take the difficult questions, right? And I'm not afraid to do that, whether it's virtual or in person. I want to engage with the community. I would not want to do any kind of proposal without meeting with the stakeholders, building consensus, making sure they're on board before we go into something, and putting all of that legwork in. And by the way, let me just finish with this, because you asked it in the beginning. One of the things I do miss from the other campaign was that meeting people on their front porch, hearing them out. It was my absolute favorite thing. I mean, I almost get emotional thinking about it. On their front porch, people will pour their heart out. They will tell you everything about their life. There's just something about that engagement. And we're not able to do that, right? Because of the COVID restrictions, we can't have that personal contact like we could canvassing on my assembly race, where you could just go door to door and just start getting into conversations with people. And it's hard to replicate that virtually. But that's what we need to do. Look at each other in the eye. We are all together in this. We all want a great San Clemente. And we can make it happen if we get away from trying to pigeonhole people into different categories. And we just think about, wait a minute, we all live here. We have that bottom line thing in common. Let's build off that, right? Everybody's got good input. I very much value your input, Raad, and anybody's input that I come in contact with. And I let them know that I value them. And I don't think have seen enough of that. But that's what I bring to the table as much as anything, right? That willingness to hear people out, to value their opinions, to take that into account, and to try to find those places of agreement that, again, I think we have a lot more than you would think in the sort of the modern age of social media, where we get told about all the things that we disagree on, and we never get told about the vast number of things that we actually agree on.
Well, on that one, I really agree with you. So
there we go. A point of agreement.
We'll leave it at that. Chris, thanks for being on, man. I wish you happy week ahead. It's coming down to the wire here. You're probably going to be a very busy man.
Yeah.
What are we, like 20 some days away?
It's just about 21 days. I think it's like 3 weeks. Yeah. So, I mean, although with everybody getting ballots, I feel like the election, it's like election night, it was for a month, True.
It's like everybody got them yesterday and they're done today. Like
I saw the numbers. Yeah. We've had a good chunk get submitted already. And in talking with people, yeah, I mean, I'd probably say 20% have already voted.
Well, I wish you luck, my friend.
Thanks so much, Ryan.
I know that people would definitely benefit from you being on City Council, and I look forward to talking to you in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll be in touch. And anybody who joined, if you're interested to find out more about Chris, the website is right there. VoteChrisDuncan.com, and I will tell you from my own personal experience, the man is very approachable and is really easy to get a hold of. So press him. I just did on a couple of things, and there's a lot of stuff that we are dealing with, but there's also, I think, we need to put some energy into inspiring what happens other than dealing with problems. And I think we have opportunities right now, and believe it or not, because of COVID, I think people are more receptive to hear things that are different. All our lives have changed in how we basically do things. And so if we just stick with that energy for a minute longer, okay, and talk about other things that we could be doing, it's no disrespect to San Clemente or even our way of life, and people who know me very well, and I will fight tooth and nail to protect and save what I feel to be very, very unique about this town. And its people is one of the most unique things. But we have opportunities to do things that will take it even to the next level and have other people appreciate it. So thanks, Chris, for being on. I really appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks for doing this, Raad. Very good to talk to you.
You too as well. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again on another episode of The Raad Life.
All right. Later on, San Clemente.
Bye-bye.